joining us for this important conversation on TFGBV, specifically on context of humanitarian crisis and conflict. And my name is Ken Otieno, and I'll be the moderator for this session. I want to begin, first of all, by acknowledging that we are having these discussions at a time when this topic is very sensitive. And therefore, I really also urge all of us and humbly request that we keep our chats and discussions respectful and safe as we proceed with the discussions. I'm joined by three panelists, but before I introduce them, please allow me to speak briefly on how humanitarian crisis and conflict reshape TFGBV manifestations, and specifically on the intersections between digital harm and physical displacement and conflict. As you all know, displacement, overcrowding, breakdowns in services, usually at times of humanitarian crisis, as well as weakened legal and protection systems, all create environments where abuse escalates and perpetrators operate with impunity in conflicts and humanitarian emergencies. At the same time, the rapid adoption of digital tools that we are all seeing, often happening without digital literacy, safeguards, or regulatory frameworks, also enables new forms of harm. And this may include online surveillance, doxing, intimate image abuse, targeted harassment, and platforms for recruitment or extortion. And I'm sure these are very familiar with those of us who work in humanitarian settings. And these harms are not isolated from existing social dynamics. The deeply embedded gender norms, the unequal power relations, economic deprivation, and cultural conservatism intersect with digital technologies to weaponize the internet against women and girls and other marginalized groups, often affecting those already displaced or politically targeted. And therefore, as we discuss prevention, response, and accountability, let us keep two priorities front and center. First of all, centering survivor safety and urgency, and bringing digital protection with humanitarian and protection services on the ground. And with that introduction, allow me to introduce our panelists. First of all, I will introduce Afnan Kanaaneh. And Afnan Kanaaneh is a master's student in communication studies at the University of Haifa and a former teaching assistant in the department. She bridges research and activism through collaboration with local Palestinian human rights organizations inside the Green Line. Her work involves conducting, writing and publishing field-based research, policy papers, and campaigns addressing TFGBV. It also involves surveillance, online repressions against Palestinians, visual violence, children's and youth digital safety in conflict and humanitarian settings. Please also allow me to introduce Dr. Tigist, Shewarega Hussen, who works in the Women's Rights Program at the Association for Progressive Communication. She's the research lead and coordinator for the Feminist Internet Research Network project. Dr. Hussen is also a practitioner in residence at the Center for Information Integrity in Africa at the Stellenbosch University. Her ongoing research explores ethical implications of artificial intelligence from a decolonial feminist and Pan-African perspective. And lastly, I would like to introduce Muderhwa Seraphin Mushagalusa, a digital rights advocate, author, and social innovator, dedicated to building safer and more inclusive digital societies, particularly in fragile and conflict-affected contexts. He's the executive director and co-founder of Digihub Africa, a South African-based non-profit advancing digital inclusion, online safety, and ethical digital transformation across the African continent. And so as we start, I would like to start with Dr. Tigist, who will start us off. And Dr. Tigist, the Feminist Internet Research Network has been arguing we need to reframe how we understand TFGBV, particularly in volatile and conflict-affected contexts, where violence against women and girls is extreme and accountability is absent. You also focus extensively on the militarization of AI. Can you help us understand what this means through some concrete examples, and how is this process gendered? Over to you, Dr. Tigist.
Hi, very lovely to be here, and thank you, Ken, for such a warm invitation. And happy to be here, and grateful for the conference organizers. As said, my name is Tigist. I am the Feminist Research Network lead and project coordinator. I'm going to share my presentation and then switch the camera off so that I can focus on my presentation than whatever else is happening. And yeah, try to be within the time limit that is given to me, but I have already asked for some time. So the Feminist Internet Research Network, sorry, why is it not moving? I'm sorry, there is a technical glitch here. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So since 2018, the Feminist Internet Research Network have been engaged in emerging internet research from a decolonial feminist perspective. We have worked through, sorry. We've been working towards informing feminist movement building, activism, knowledge building, and policy advocacy. Between 2024 and 2026, this is our third cycle of FIRN project. We have worked with 10 feminist research projects across 10 countries, and we've been collaborating with interesting feminist activists and movement builders and researchers and institutions. And through this encounter, including the other 2 cycles of feminist research, we are increasingly learning around the gap that existed in the dominant discourse and framing of TFGBV, which then invited us to start thinking around a shift, a radical shift around the restrictive and institutionally defined responses to TFGBV. I'd like to show you what I mean by that and how our partners have been pushing us to think around TFGBV beyond what we already know or what we already institutionally recognized. And I will give you 3 of the research partners as an example. And from there, we can have more conversation. And the first one is our partner from Egypt. They have done an interesting work and that looks at connecting what we simply identify as TFGBV with the mechanics of deliberate state-sponsored narrative building and propaganda that leverage nationalism, masculinity, and religious conservative narratives. And so the state, what they have done, the researchers, what they have done was through meticulous evidence building, they showed us how the state uses narratives that vilify and criminalize certain groups, specifically LGBTIQ communities in Egypt, and more also right now, because of the war that is in the eastern part of Africa, migrants from Sudan and Ethiopia and Eritrea. And the state frames them as traits and deliberately incites hateful and fuel public hostility and legitimizes violence. And the framing of this marginalized group as a trait is a fueling subject here for the TFGBV that we see being experienced online, and we get to be overwhelmed because we are observing that. And through that, what they try to do in the research is trying to show us what we see in the platform as TFGBV sometimes is a deliberate and state-sponsored articulation and orchestrated violence that really tries to undermine the human rights violation that existed in the state against marginalized communities, in this case being the LGBTI community in Egypt and migrant communities who are trying to be sheltered from, the countries they flee from. And the next research that I want to share with you is a queer resistance that was done in the Ethiopian context. And our partners in Ethiopia, what they have worked on TFGBV, as the research shows us how anti-LGBTIQ groups have been using the media platform to gain more currency in the work in who they are in social capital in the state itself. And they have given us different stakeholders who have active involvement in inciting violence against the LGBT community, but with a very purposeful and calculated measures. For example, religious leaders across various phases invoking religious doctrine to justify and legitimate violence. Through that, really bringing in more people to the church, and also activating a religious conservative narrative in that space too. And another entity and stakeholders are like celebrities. These are celebrities, actors, musicians, artists, and also TikTok influencers, IG influencers, and Facebook influencers using and exploiting the anti-LGBTQ plus narrative to gain more sentiment from viewers, to gain more followers, to earn more money, and to get more social credibility in that sense. And there is also another group that we have seen through the research that they are actually within the human rights, advocates, specifically women human rights advocates, and who identify themselves as feminists, using the hate campaign to kind of preserve or enhance their public image, and hence really, attacking the marginalized communities. Specifically, that happens when they are faced by social pressure and hatred. So something about that, the ways in which people use violence in that way has been recorded by our partners. The last research that I wanted to share here is by our partners' cohort journal. They were looking at the genocide in Palestine and Lebanon. And their research have shown us from a feminist, intersectional, and decolonial perspective how technology, militancy, and endless genocides are actually really connected directly right now at this specific moment as we're living it. And they argue that, genocide as a common occurrence is a common occurrence for indigenous and colonized people. And this is despite how history tries to tell us and to silence us or to really, dislocate some of the stories. But this happens over and over. And so this endless genocide being attached on some ways directly connected to technology is one of the things that they were doing. Here, technology being like in hyper-surveillance, hyper-militarization, drone attack, checkpoint verification, facial recognition, border occupation, and others being partly helped through such automation system is part of the conversation. And really what we write today, the past few days, these are the things that we've been watching and really observing, and which lead me to what we have been saying for the past few years around the need to decenter social media focused analysis on TFGBV, but to really, for people who are interested in feminist politics or people who are interested in technology facilitated violence, to start thinking about violence through militarization, technology in violence, in war, genocide, and conflict zones. Now, as an African feminist who is located in Africa and who's paying attention to what is happening within the African continent itself, specifically in East Africa, as someone who is originally from Ethiopia and Sudan, and looking at DRC, there is a very growing interest from the state side to kind of buy into these AI-enabled weapons. And these are, agents capable of, executing military and strategic orders with a considerable autonomy, sometimes even without human interventions. And to just give you a statistical information here, at least basic research that we have done within the African continent, even though AU says 19 countries, I think other sources show us that over 7 countries have been buying this drone technologies through with a varying degree of autonomy. These are countries like Algeria, Burkina Faso. You could see the list here: Ethiopia, Kenya, Libya, Mali, and you have Sudan, Togo, Tunisia, and Zambia, and others who are mentioned here. And for me, the basic question, and with which I wanted to finish this conversation, is then while we are advocating for no war and that we don't want to see any violence in human suffering through dictatorship, fascism, and military and war, but the fact of the matter is we exist in a time and age where we are bombarded by war after war, and then technologies seem to be having a central play in this chaos. And so the question then is, do we have a regulation in place to start beginning to hold entities accountable? And the basic research that we have done, and this is not conclusive and it cannot be seen as one of the, a finding of any sort, but our exploration says that at least in 2023, in October, the UN General Assembly have tried to call upon international community to establish responsible policies. But then here the problem is they are naming countries that have been already suffering from this supply and demand kind of thing around technology, which is Middle East, Africa, and Europe. And it's interesting for me that we are listing some particular places in the conversation with higher demand or increasing rapid drone military. And then the other one that we've seen is the misuse of drone by terrorist group have been particularly the concern of the UN UN Security Council Counter-Terrorist Committee. This is also in 2023. Here, the important question one need to ask specifically where we are living right now. Who is the terrorist group here? Is it the group that is selling the technology, or is it the group that is buying the technology? What time do we have to actually start saying terrorist groups? But again, there is a bias here. There is an insuated, already judged places people could go to. So that needs to be questioned too. Coming back home within the African Union and African, in the IGAD system, there is, disappointingly so, there is a very slow, established, cohesive regulation around autonomous weapon systems. And this has actually given some states to use drone attack and other AI-related technologies that are used for warfare without or very little accountability. Here, I'm directly naming Ethiopia as one of the countries that has been using this kind of technologies for over, since 2020 on Tigrayan people and on Amhara people. And again, a country that might go to another war and still trying to think about buying this kind of technologies. And again, a country that uses social defense, state defense and warfare as a reason to start producing this technology in the country too. And I'm just going to stop here, but wanted to say the whole provocation here is really all work is beautiful and needs to be done. But really looking at what we're going now in the world, I think feminists and people who are trying to think about technology-faceted violence to start looking into these technologies and have a conversation with multiple entities to come to some sort of, not solution, I don't know if we do have solution, but some sort of design so that we could actually, at least can begin with accountability, if not anything else. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tigist, for the very insightful presentation. And you did indeed share with us the multiple gaps that you've seen in terms of framing TFGBV. And the need to think of the definition beyond what we already know, and as well you'll be able to provide for us the different researches, which for me and I know also those who are participating is an eye opener, and indeed it brings forth new and evolving mechanisms through which TFGBV is manifested. And you also asked a big question: is there regulation to hold entities accountable? So with that, thank you once again, Dr. Tigist. I now pass the floor to Afnan for presentation on the report she authored, which will be presenting to us today. And the report is titled War and Digital Shadows, Palestinian women between voice, quantification, and body exposure in digital space. Welcome, Afnan.
Welcome, Ken, and thank you for the introduction. So I'll be sharing my presentation. So just making sure, can you see my presentation?
Yes, Afnan.
Okay, thank you for confirming. So once again, thanks for having me here. I am really happy to join you today. So as Ken mentioned, I will be presenting today findings that is related to a study that I have conducted with Hamle titled War and Digital Shadows, Palestinian Women Between Silencing of Voice and Exposing of Body and in the Digital Sphere. I will try to be as precise as possible due to the time limitation. So just as a beginning, we started this study with a question asking how does gender-based violence have become a weapon of war and a tool of political repression in Palestine, more specifically during the genocide after the 7th of October. And we also try to understand how did the war affect gender-based violence against Palestinian women and what role does technology play within all of this? So to answer these questions, we have conducted a survey with 700 Palestinian women from the West Bank, Jerusalem, and inside the Green Line, Palestinian women who holds Israeli citizenship, along with 6 focus groups with female Palestinians from the same regions, and 10 interviews with activists working in women's rights organization. Unfortunately, due to the situation in Gaza, we didn't manage to include women from this area, but we tried in other ways to find results or indicators of how the use of technology have affected their gender fundamental rights. So what I'll try to do in this presentation is basically to dismantle all the components that have been attacked, the components of female gender identity in the Palestinian society, that these components constitute basically our identity as women, and as a result, the occupation and other social and political actors have played role in attacking using technology, but not only using technology, but sometimes as a result of female political expression in the digital sphere. So the first component was basically attacking Palestinian women's voices all the time. So the Israeli occupation have long used technology surveillance in order to press and control Palestinian women voices. And obviously, since there is in general a lot of control over women voices, that basically means that there is more damage to women's ability to political in comparison to men who have less control on them on the social aspect. So we also noticed that 67% of the women in the West Bank say that they feel that they are being surveilled by a certain group, and a 57% of women who holds Israeli citizenship. But that's not only, mostly like many women have been deprived of their right to express their voices and opinions and perspectives in the social sphere because of deprivation of internet access, specifically since Israel have targeted infrastructures in Gaza, but also in some areas in Palestine, specifically the Naqab and Area C in the West Bank. There is the infrastructures are highly underdeveloped and they are not allowed to develop it. So one thing that we have noticed in the study, since the situation in Palestine is very complex and it's ruled by, in different regions, it's ruled by different governance. Inside the Green Line, it's ruled by Israel. In the West Bank, we have the Palestinian Authority, and in Gaza, we have Hamas. We can say that today social media have enabled different social and political players to play a role in oppressing and controlling Palestinian women, but not only the, let's say, the government. Sometimes women face community-based surveillance from family, workplace, Palestinian leaders in Israel, education institutions, religious figures, and criminal organizations, or sometimes Israeli users, that they all have played a role in controlling Palestinian women, not only on aspects that is related to work or to educations. Basically, they have attacked any expression of Palestinian women online, which is anti-war or anti-genocide. So we can see here that the percents in the West Bank, we have 26% of women feel that they are surveilled by the occupation, and then 20.4% feel that they are surveilled by the Palestinian Authority. While inside the Green Line, we have 28.5% that's really that they are surveilled by the occupation, and only 0.5% surveilled by the Palestinian Authority, because the Palestinian Authority doesn't really have any control over a woman who holds Israeli citizenship. But something that we have noticed, that in addition to feeling surveilled by the authorities, Palestinian women who holds Israeli citizenship, almost 17% of them feel that they are surveilled by Israel, to the direct contact they have with Israeli users in the workplace, education, and other public spaces. I will skip this. And in addition to controlling women voices on the public sphere, something what we have noticed, whenever Israel wants to punish women for their political expression in social media, they try to target female bodies, specifically the community and Muslim communities in general. They try to be, they actually insist on privacy regarding woman body, concealment, and so on. So they attack something that is very sacred inside the society itself. So mostly we see that the main primary way to punish women for expressing their opinion on social media is detention, interrogation, questioning, and cases, charges of incitement and support of terrorism have been bringing against these women. Although sometimes, like, a terrorism could be defined as an act of putting like on a video. There was a situation of a woman, a Gazan woman, who are married to a man, a Palestinian man who holds an Israeli citizenship, who, after her family was killed, she just published a status on social media, said, "May you rest in peace," just like that. And then she was arrested after that post. So basically, there is no intact definition of what is actually terrorism. So any act that we do in social media could be defined as terrorism, and we could actually be arrested afterward. But also something that we have noticed, that most women who have been arrested due to their political expression in social media, during arrest, they have went through strip searches, or physical and digital sexual assaults as a result of that, as a punishment for them for using their voice against the genocide. But also something else that we have noticed, that the Israeli authorities, most specifically soldiers, they usually also tend to document these physical and sexual assaults. Sometimes they document women completely naked using their phones, their private phones, and then they tend to publish that on social media. And if not publishing, sometimes they use it as a threat in order to activity after being released. So either you choose to be silent, or we will publish that content. And a lot of women prefer to stay silent and not to interfere again with political matters. There is another position paper that I'm working right now with Hamlet, it's supposed to come soon, that we also document that most of these cases also document men, Palestinian men in Israeli prisons who are being raped, sexually a way of humiliation, and also proving like control over Palestinian bodies. And there is also another thing that is actually called isqat. Isqat is basically a situation when Israeli occupation uses the weakness of Palestinian women in order to push them or pressure them to cope with Israeli authorities. Sometimes they ask them to spy for them. Sometimes they ask for certain information about people. So mostly isqat depends on, let's say, videos or photographs of women doing things that is considered prohibited inside the Palestinian society. Sometimes they having sex, in other times, which is related to the gender orientation of these women. So if you're lesbian, bisexual, or anything like that, since the society doesn't actually welcome this stuff, so the Israeli occupation take advantage of this and exploit women. Another thing that we have noticed, basically, that although it's right that the Israeli occupation tried to suppress women, the crisis that have been resulted from the genocide in Gaza, along with the high unemployment levels in the West Bank, which reached more than 30% of the population there are unemployed, and the restrictions on movement. So the economic crisis basically made more and more Palestinian men use blackmail for financial gain, and blackmail could basically also include, again, using sex tapes or videos or anything, chats or anything like that, in order to ask women to pay them money. So we are talking now about a moral disintegration that have been resulted by the human crisis in Palestine. Also, another thing that we have also monitored, that there have been a lot of technology facilitated human trafficking, specifically mostly some people have used fake job advertisement on social media, using, again, the economic crisis in order to lure women and take more human trafficking, drug chains, and so on. And another aspect that have been also related to the destruction of infrastructures in Gaza, basically a lot of women didn't even manage to ask for birth help or birth help after when they are going to get birth, because there was no communication. The same thing we also noticed in the Naqab and in Area C, again, where there is no infrastructures. So in many cases, these women have documented basically that a lot of women give birth in the cars because they didn't actually manage to call someone earlier to drive them to the hospital. And the Google Maps and other maps, they doesn't include these areas. So even ambulance can't reach these places. One more aspect, and I have only another slide and I will be done. One more aspect about that is, again, attacking attacking online and in the digital sphere, because woman reputation in the Palestinian society is also related to family owner and so on. So basically, there is a huge importance to it. So that again makes it a very vulnerable tool that Israeli occupation can use against women. So we usually see all the time using or defaming women using terms like owner and share and share. Tigist, can you please just okay, thank you. And also, again, there is sometimes like also threats to publish and fabricate photos using AI, and these are all tools against activation and in several cases that we have documented, Israeli users more specifically threaten queer women from the queer community that they are going to contact their families and explore their gender and sexual orientation in order to suppress again once more their social their political expression, and that's also sometimes related to spreading to damage women. And the last thing that we have actually noticed was basically Israelis using fundamental human rights or women's rights in order to suppress women, mostly using civil and social rights to suppress their political rights or to punish them for their expressions on social media. There were cases that we have documented of women that have been deprived of their residency, specifically women from the West Bank and Gaza married to men, to Palestinian men who hold Israeli citizenship, and they have been deported again back to the West Bank with their families, without their children. There were cases that we have documented of Palestinian women who have been punished for their political expression by depriving them from their work permits when they worked inside the Green Line. Other women have been fired from their jobs, and other women have been also expelled from the universities and from education. So basically, and there's also now threats about like depriving Palestinian women and men from their citizenship. So here we see how women they usually choose to stay quiet and not publish anything on social media because this is their way to survive. And basically, they choose surviving and they choose family over political expression. So in general, if I'm going to just conclude saying what effects and consequences we have on women, so we see that almost half of the Palestinian women start to choose self-censorship because the price of publicly expressing themselves is higher than they can expect. Or what they can handle. Also, we see, again, half of the population started to withdraw from the social media platforms and started to lose faith in digital activism and started to prefer basically offline activisms in closed rooms with small communities in order to protect themselves. We see that a decline of 45% of the mental health of women in the West Bank and 35% in the 48 territories inside the Green Line, and a decline in the sense of safety by 45% in the West Bank and 56% inside the Green Line. And I will just stop here. Thank you for listening, and we can continue this conversation later in the chat or something. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Afnan, again, for the great and insightful report reflections. And indeed, you've shared with us how women's voices are being controlled when they're deprived of internet, when they're being surveilled basically across all spheres by different authorities. The attacks that women are facing because of their political expression, the detention, the sexual abuse, the documentation and publishing of photos, just to silence them. And how family honor as well is being used as a threat. We are seeing that women are being silenced in very, very many ways. So thank you very much, for sharing. And maybe just a follow-up. on your presentation. For those of us who have read your report, you conclude, your report concludes with concrete recommendations for Palestinian organizations, international actors, and tech companies, where we say when traditional institutions where traditional protection systems are failing or inadequate, as you have documented. Afnan, what are the most urgent actions needed right now? What would actually make a difference for Palestinian women facing this layered threat? Afnan, in 3 minutes, please share with us these 2 to 3 priority recommendations as we close. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. So I would just try to sum up what I think. First of all, if I think of one thing that really, that's the only thing that I think it's going to put an end to all of this, is ending the occupation. Sometimes I feel that we are stuck in a place that we keep talking about managing the crisis instead of solving the crisis. And it's okay that we need tools for the right now in order to manage the crisis and in order to survive this day and then maybe to survive tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. But at a certain point, we also need to start talking about ending the occupation, because it is the source of all violations that we have, that I have enlisted, and other violations that also I'm sure most of you have been aware of regarding what happened during the genocide and what we also face on a daily basis. So that's the main source. In addition to that, I think that at a certain point, we need also to strengthen cooperation and direct communication channels between local, regional, and international women's and digital rights organizations, along with the companies, in order to be able to provide these women a direct and urgent and immediate response to the to the suppressions that they are facing. Because in many cases, in order to manage these violations, we need the help of several, let's say, tech actors or human rights actors, and one community, one organization. If each organization works individually, we won't be able to provide them with the adequate, let's say, response these women need, specifically that we are talking about a systemic violence that is more powerful than anyone. So we need to uplift also our abilities in order to help them in a certain way. And also there is and also another thing that we need to also try to take into consideration is that when we talk about funding for human rights organizations, or when we talk about giving these women the support they need, we can, about gender-based violence that they experience through technology, we cannot only talk about one component. I cannot only talk about tech companies, and I cannot only talk about legal help. I need to try to provide them a more comprehensive solutions to the things that they have been facing, a more comprehensive support, which includes both technical, psychological, and legal and social assistance, because obviously these violations affect every aspect of their lives, and we have seen that how every aspect of their experience as women is under attack for merely expressing their opinion on social media, and we are not yet reaching the point when we say that they need to participate in protests, just so political expression in social media. And that would be what I think is the most relevant for the session today.
Okay. Thank you very much, Afnan. I'll now move to our third panelist, Muderhwa. And Muderhwa, I will start by asking you that your recent report on Sudan highlights that online manipulation is not just a side effect of war, but a core strategy. Specifically regarding TFGBV, how have you seen gender narratives used as a precursor to physical violence in conflict zones? And what does this mean for the way we prioritize digital protection in humanitarian aid? Over to you, Muderhwa, in 10 minutes. Muderhwa, I think you're muted. We can't hear you. Thank you now. Now we can hear you.
Well, that I'm fine. So thanks for the for the organizer for inviting us in this, and thank you, Ken, for the introduction. So as I say, you said I work for with Digihub Africa. We are based in South Africa, and Digihub is it's South African based organization that operating across the continent. So I'll start by you for. So Digihub Africa, I've launched a campaign, what you call Hold Award Before You Send It. So Digihub, through the campaign, we are trying to raise awareness. We are not only focusing on when it comes to we are raising awareness when it comes to of online behavior, online and technology, when it comes to the risk and its impact on how it impacts differently on the population, especially in the conflict zone. So, but let's make precise, Ken, that we are not only focusing on the conflict zone. It's a major aspect of our work, but we also focus on the same impact of digital technology. Generally, like when we talk about its impact on GBV, gender-based violence, but all in general, but also we special focus on the conflict zone. So I will jump. Should I jump to the? Should I go to the presentation?
Yes, please.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
go
great.
to the,
Okay. So let me. I'll just switch off my camera for me to start the presentation. So I hope everyone can see the screen. So like I was saying, our campaign is called Hold Before You Send It. So we are looking at how so digital, like it's saying on top, digital spark can have real world consequence, what you call real world flame. So the idea is like we are trying to raise awareness to people, to the users of the social media, and how the behavior online can have a real focus on the real world. So our main focus when it comes to conflict zone, we are basically focusing on two countries to conflict in Africa. We are saying DRC and as well in Sudan. And we have done a lot of work in Sudan, so it's not we've not done it ourselves, but we've done also through our partner. So talking about Sudan, so let me say we all know Ken, that the conflict going in Sudan is having impact at all levels. So, and for us, we want just to highlight the impact is having on independent journalism and the traditional journalism in general. So from our assessment, it has appeared like around 90% of the existing journalism, traditional journalism infrastructure had been damaged or shut down in Sudan. So you understand that when this happened, the alternative now people are trying now to rely more on social media, social platform to get either information or update. So we all agree, Ken, that the independent journalism play a crucial role in accountability, especially because you're talking about conflicting zones. So in Sudan, unfortunately, and it's not specific for Sudan, but when you look as well for so many conflicting zones happening across the continent, so journalists have been displaced or silenced. So especially in Sudan, we've noted that. And when this happen, automatically we are weakening, the system, the existing system. And when we weaken the existing system, it's leave a vacuum. So automatically, what you call social media is trying to fill that vacuum. Unfortunately, this creates opportunity for different parties, belligerents as you may call it, to use this channel to manipulate and for their own agenda. So how does it appear? So we've just these are just a few of them, but yeah, the list is a bit long, so we just try to summarize when it's come to harmful action that's happening via the internet. So we said public shaming, accusation. There is this term called they're calling call it a collaborator. So accusing firstly generally women, to be taking side, and as we'll see a bit later, so some women are being punished for this one, and without any proper verification of this information. So you see that in Sudan, so this has become very it's in general, yes, there's a risk for women, but when you are a woman activist, it's even become worse for you. I mean, we've seen case of personal phone, number and account detail being misused. There are photos that have been stolen and manipulated. There's quite a number of things that is happening, and the data suggests like around 54% of female journalists in Sudan have experimented digital violence. But also we can add on top of that, and there are women that are being accused, based on false information, circulating online. We say false because there's no there's no proper verification. Sometimes just happen for one reason or another. These women are being brought to court. Sometimes it end up in a death sentence because of this kind of information not verified, circulating online. So one of the means, we wanted to insist on deepfake because it's one of the tools that is actually being used in this conflict. So we have seen, we receive also testimony of women, when they generate sometimes, fake image, I don't know, videos, even they can clone voices and to discredit the woman. So we also notice sometimes, the videos are being recycled or photos are being recycled from a different conflict, different context, and, it's recycled and pushed in like it's happening in Sudan. So we have seen also it's like a campaign, a sexual harassment. It's a campaign running online, and you've seen this one having now resulting sometime in physical and sexual violence. We mentioned about sometimes some women are called a traitor or spy by one side or the other one, and this happening online, but it starts online and it goes in the real world. So these women are suffering, having consequences. Things are happening to them because of someone somewhere for some reason, just push something online, and for some reason, one reason or another, people came to believe it, and people are being punished severely without any proper verification. And unfortunately, there is a lack of law criminalizing digital violence or effective mechanism to hold perpetrator accountable, which make it very hard to protect women online. So these are some of the impact, of this situation. So we have these are just a few, but the list is it can be extended there. So we have psychological pressure, fear, anxiety, depression. So, like I said, we are not only limited to Sudan. We also look at country like DRC, and we found out there's quite a lot of similarity within this with this two conflict. So, in our findings tell us like in both conflicts. So we noted like first then gender disinformation spread faster than in an emotionally charged conflict environment. So the second one is the youth. It's the youth are dominating the online space, which accelerates the amplification. So if I can illustrate this, when you take like DRC, especially, you look at the east where the conflict is actually concentrated. So you will see the most active age online is between 18, okay, we'll take like Facebook, it's 18 to 24. So we can say around, or young adults, somewhere, and teenagers. So that's the general age. Those people are the one very active on the internet. So you understand how it. So we have also noted like what is happening when people are being targeted online, women, and sometimes they are forced to move, to leave where they've been living, to move to another place. But it's already a conflicting zone, because when it's come online, they're showing pictures of you, I don't know, naked or whatever they show, it makes you uncomfortable. So the next move, you are trying to leave the place and go to another place. And remember, this is already an unstable situation. So you are, even by moving, you are putting yourself again at higher risk. So what I want also to flag here is we have also noticed both in DRC as well in Sudan. So knowing the belligerent, whoever have interest of this in this war, knowing the level of literacy for the people living in the area, and what they do sometimes, some genuine info, they are push something to make people believe it's a fast one. And when a real one the real one, they push it to people to believe it's a fast one. But when the fake one, for some reason, they play and manipulate and show people like this is the real info. So it plays in all the parties involved, both we are noted in both in DRC as well as in Sudan.
Muderhwa, sorry to come in, but we are going a little bit beyond the time that was given to us. So I'll kindly request that you wrap up, and then we'll go to the closing session. Thank you, and sorry for that.
Okay, great, no problem. So I'm jumping to we are finishing. So what we did at Digihub, we said, okay, what can we do about this? What we are advocating? We are asking people to hold. I mean, we are telling people before you post, before you forward any info, before you react to any post, hold. So what we do at Digihub Africa. So I just jumped some of the. So in Digihub Africa, we are building a movement of people who choose protection over amplification, responsibility over reaction, and defending women and the truth in digital space. So we are asking if you believe that digital space should not be weaponized against women, AI should not be used to silence survivors, and peace should also exist online, then don't stay silent. Stand with us and build with us. Ken, I just went direct to the two last slides, so over to you.
No, thank you so much, Muderhwa, as well for summarizing. So I think we are a little beyond time, and if you allow me, just in a minute, I will like to call in Dr. Tigist, just to provide some closing reflection on TFGBV within the broader systems of oppression. In 2 minutes, Dr. Tigist, and then we'll close. Over to you.
No, I'll try to be even much more shorter. So I think what I wanted to say, and this has been, the conversation has been very fantastic, and thank you, Afnan, thank you for the paper that you've presented, and it's been amazing to listen to you, and Muderhwa also, thank you so very much for that. And I think that in conclusion, what we could say is, I mean, what is happening in the world right now, at this specific moment, at this specific time, actually it should force us to shift or expand our work in relation to technology-facilitated violence. We have to reconsider what we normally think of as an important for feminist technologies to engage with the growing authoritarianism, militarization, and autonomization of weapon systems. And then so that we could actually engage with, spaces such as this, like conflict, war, and genocide happening. I want to close by referring to comrades and friends from Sudan and Feminists collective. People like Mai from Noor or Iman from Noon, they have been discussing about the future of the world in really radical way, and talking about how this kind of technologies, yes, it could be experimented on the most marginalized people, specifically in Africa. But make no mistake that, we are coming from the future, and the dominant and dormant and quite autonomous, weaponing system technology are not going to remain being this way. And the faster we move with engaging and standing in solidarity, the better for the peace of the world and for our own, future. And yeah, I would like to stop there. And I think, yeah.
All right. Thank you very much once again to Dr. Tigist, Afnan, and Muderhwa for sharing with us very insightful presentations today. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Unfortunately, we are a bit over time, so I'll hand it over back to our main moderator. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, everyone, for keeping up in this very important session. We are going to a break, but first, I don't want to leave without doing a small recap of the great, fantastic 2 sessions we have seen over the second half of the day. We've seen how tech has been weaponized by states and other actors within context of war, genocide, and conflict to deepen the violence that women and LGBTQI groups experience in everyday basis. But we have also seen another side of how tech can be shaped differently. We heard from two groups that are really doing very inspiring work, committed with understanding the complexity of tech design and bringing safety, privacy, and prevention of harm at the core of their developments. I want to take back the words of Anna from Yuki that brought us the principle of co-design at the center of tech development, acknowledging that people, tech users, are experts of their own lives, and they can also take part in shaping the technologies that we dream of and that we want. And of course, this is a complex reality in which we are being subjected by tech powers, in which tech really deepens the violence that our populations are living across the globe. But we also have the opportunity to invest and sustain other types of technology that are already there and need wider recognition and support. So leaving you with this reflection, we will take 10 minutes of break and join back for the closing session of this first day of the symposium. Thank you, everyone, and see you back in 10 minutes.